Hello again, this is Mr. Wisdom. Today I want to talk to you about the meaning of life. This, of course, for maybe millennia now or beyond, people have been trying to figure out. And, I'm 58 years old and I have lifetimes of experience. It's all over the world in so many different genres. And I pride myself in being a thinker, and really contemplate things and master of psychology, philosophy, and so I've come to the conclusion that the meaning of life isn't actually so complicated. I don't think we individually all have a specific destiny or a specific reason we were put on this earth. I think it's all kind of this. We all kind of have the same reason to be here. Basically, life is about experiences. In the end, that's all you have is your experiences, good, bad, indifferent. And so I think we're here to go through all this experience, have as many life experiences as possible, and learn from those experiences, and not be controlled by those experiences. What I mean by not be controlled, so sometimes you might have something bad happen, and it affects you deeply, and sometimes it stays with you your whole life, or most of it. So that is controlling you. So, or something good, you might have a religious experience, and then that sometimes that can control people, and as well. It's not necessarily in a bad way, but it's still controlling you. So I think that's my experience. I think that's truly the meaning of life, is to experience as much of life as possible, and just learn from those life experiences, understand those life experiences, and then simply let them go. They're still in your memories, but let them go. Don't let them control you. It's kind of like in meditation, some of the more rudimentary meditations. They'll tell you, just think of you're sitting down in front of a flowing river, and you're just looking into the water, and your mind's not on the water moving. You're just looking. And so you don't focus on one specific thing. And from time to time, maybe a leaf will pass, or a stick, or a fish, frog, whatever, will pass, but you don't focus on that. You see it, but you don't focus on it, right? So in other words, don't get polarized on any one life experience. And also, what I'm another way to look at it too is this: when you have children, people tend to focus all their attention. A lot of times, married couples wind up focusing most of their attention, sometimes all their attention, on those children. And you might say, well, that's not a bad thing. In the long run, it is, because what happens inevitably, they go away. They grow up, they get a life of their own, they go off to college, whatever, and now you don't have that. Now that is a void. And that's when you start to have people have midlife crisis, or marriages start to get rocky, and they start fighting, and maybe they get divorced because they were focused so much on their children, and now that's gone, and they're scrambling trying to replace that focus. So what I'm saying is, you don't focus entirely on it. Obviously, you have to have a certain amount of focus on your children and do your job as a parent, which is to teach your children how to be a happy, healthy, productive, successful adult. but you can't get consumed by it. You know, for example, like you see some of these parents at a sporting event, a soccer mom or a dad, and they get so crazy into the kid sport. They start yelling and screaming. They're so upset. Sometimes they start fighting with the referee or the coach. Or that's what I'm talking about. You're too involved in it, and it shouldn't be that serious. Not a sport, you know. Um, And the funny thing is, in that situation, a lot of times, those are the parents who aren't as involved as in their education of the kids, but they're so much involved in the sports. Um, but anyway, that's what I mean by you don't get consumed by it. Don't get polarized by it. So obviously, you do have to, um, have a lot of attention on the children, but don't get so over focused on them, and let them. You're going to also at the same time, if you're not as focused, just make sure they're getting everything they need. You're educating them, training them how to be an adult, and then let them find their way. So that way you're not a helicopter parent, as they say. I hope this is making sense to people. I'm trying to relate it as best I can. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but essentially, to me, it is ultimately rather simple. And I think we overcomplicate it. So the meaning of life, meaning of life, is simply to experience as much of life as possible, and learn from those experiences, understand what those experiences are, what they mean, and then move forward. Right? Don't get, don't let them control you with those experiences, and don't get too polarized with them. Don't get too upset. Um, too laser focused on one specific aspect for too long. For short periods of time, sure, but not for so long. Another example I think I can give. I've known people, and I'm sure some of you have as well, um, who are workaholics, or they had a business and they were so laser focused on that, and it basically consumed them to the level of, they really never truly had a day off, because even when they were technically off, they weren't off up here. It was always in the thinking about the business and the money, and then they do that for 30, 40 years, and then retire, and they're just basically a zombie. They don't know what to do. Sometimes they even kill themselves, or they just wither away, and within a year or two, sometimes those people they die because uh, they were so focused and every day doing the same thing, concentrating so hard on that one thing, and now that's gone, and that sudden change, it just hits them hard. It happened for a while for my dad. The first year of retirement for him, um, he was absolutely miserable. He still had my mom. He still had, he loved to garden and stuff. He still had all that stuff, but he was miserable because every day he had the same routine for so many years, and then that routine breaks. So in other words, don't get too caught up in the minutia. Don't get too caught up in the day-to-day stuff. Too laser focused on work. You need to be focused enough to get the job done, to do what you need to do, and be successful in work or whatever aspect of life. But don't get too carried away with it. Check yourself. Do some I would say maybe once a month, once a week even. Do some self-reflecting and look inward and say to yourself, okay, how am I as a person? How am I doing as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a family member, as a member of the community? Am I truly happy? Am I doing um, what makes me happy? Am I learning from life? Um, or am I, you know, getting upset too easy on certain things? Am I drinking too much? Smoking too much? This and that. And really examine your life, and then if there's areas you think things will pop up, and you'll say, you know what? Yeah, I think maybe I'm drinking too much, so let me slow down on that. Or I get I get over anxious, or I fly off the handle too much. I'm too hot tempered. I need to try and work on that. You'll start to figure some stuff out, um, and it takes a while. You know, sometimes it takes almost your entire life to find it. I'm 58, and a lot of this stuff is just in this last few years I'm starting to figure it out. So, in the end, as I said, life is just a compilement of experiences, and just enjoy those experiences as much as possible, and try and be happy. Until next time, it's Mr. Wisdom.